Out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. How many people sitting here this morning know the name of that poem? I'm sure some of you do. You know the name of the poem? That's right, it's Invictus. And it was written by William Henley long ago. And it's been a source of inspiration for many people, including those of you who watched the movie of the World Cup by the name Invictus. Nelson Mandela used it as a source of inspiration while he was on Robben Island. And he shared it with the Springbok team when they're preparing for the World Cup in '95. And they used it as a core sort of mantra for what they were going to achieve. And one day I was sharing this, I've got a son, he lives in the US, he's in the music industry, tough industry, the music producer and a songwriter. And one night he was on the phone and he was really going through a tough time, he's been there 10 years. And I just so happened to have just learned this poem, and I shared it with him. And he said, that's such a good poem, but I can't own it. So I said, well, why can't you own it? He says, because I don't feel I can say that in the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. He says, I don't feel that I can say that, because it says, under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. I don't feel I can own that. And then I was able to share with him the story of William Henley, actually, when he wrote this poem. William Henley was eventually quite a well-known writer in the UK. But he was afflicted from the age of 12 with tuberculosis. And, he had several problems, following that. And at the age of 19, he had his left leg cut off below the knee. And in fact, Long John Silver, in the story by Robert Louis Stevenson, or whoever it was, I can't remember who wrote it, but he was the inspiration for that part. And so he had his leg cut off at 19, and then from the age of 23 to 26, he was in the hospital for 3 years because his right foot was going to be cut off, because of this disease that he'd been afflicted with. And he wrote this poem around that time. So it wasn't necessarily a poem of all the things he had achieved. It was aspirational in many respects, about what he wanted to hold at the core to really get through the things that he was facing. And I was able to share that with my son, say, sometimes these things are said, not as the things that are, but the things that are aspirational about what we want, what we need to hold us up in the times of greatest adversity and greatest challenge. And we've all been through a lot in South Africa, and the world over the last 18 months, 2 years. We have to really go and check what's at the core, what it is that's holding us up in these times and helping us to get up every day and just see the next day and get forward. Everybody has something at the core. We call them values. We have values. Everybody has values. Every single person in the world has values. Good people, bad people, robbers, murderers, philanthropists, priests. Everybody has values. Every organization has values. Whether you've written them down and put them on a wall or done anything with them, doesn't matter. You've got values. Your family has values. Your community has values. Everybody has values. And every company has values. Even those that don't express them, they have values. They are the way they do things. Those are the values. Everybody has values. We have values in our company. Our values are to be resolute, trustworthy, and responsible. We want to be held to account by our customers, our suppliers, everybody else, and our colleagues in the business, and we want to hold others to account on these values that exist within our business. But what is a value? It's an individual belief that motivates somebody to act in one way or another. These are traits or behaviors that are instrumental as a means to an end. That's a value in this context. So the value is a trait that's instrumental as a means to an end. What is the end in the context of a company? Well, in our case, it's our purpose of making a difference, providing our customers with sustainable solutions worth their price, and giving effect to the circular economy through our integrated business model, and achieving the vision that we have to be an ethical company with all the good things that go with that. That's the end. But an end on its own means nothing if you don't have a plan. And the plan is expressed in companies in the form of a strategy. And our strategy is built on 3 key pillars. There's lots of activities that go beyond strategically, beyond these pillars, but there are 3 key pillars. And I was sharing this stuff with our staff and our colleagues over the last years, and I realized a lot of the stuff we use is like business school stuff. It doesn't make sense to anybody. But in simple terms, it just means putting our customers first. That's the first pillar. The second is being the best at what we do. And the third is making a decent profit decently. A phrase we stole or borrowed from, if I could say, from Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. He said, we want to make a decent profit decently. Those who read the book Shoe Dog might be in there. Because gangsters make decent profits. The Guptas made a decent profit. Corrupt people make decent profits, but they don't do it decently. And we as a company, we want to make a decent profit decently. And there's underneath each of those pillars, there are a number of points which are listed there. And every time we have a business opportunity or project, we test them against these 3 pillars and check, will these projects achieve these objectives? And that's how we move forward. So today I thought, I want to share, when you come and talk to a group of customers and others that are involved with your business that we're so reliant on them, we build our business around. One is inclined to go through a whole lot of, I could tell you about the numbers and all of that stuff, but the numbers don't speak to who we are as a company. The numbers are an end, they're not what brings the end, what is at the core of the company. And I thought, how best to talk about the values, because I could also stand here and give you a very pretentious long story about the values and what they mean and all of that. And that might be interesting, but I'm sure you've heard it all before. And if you go and look at the marketing or the integrated reports of companies that are written by people who are good at making these things sound great. So instead of all of that, I sort of thought the greatest learnings that we have in life come from our most difficult times. We're not necessarily defined by all our challenges, but our life is often informed by how we respond to those challenges. And we have this thing of being, in our company, we say we want people who are resolute, and we want to test for that when we recruit people. And I was at this course in the US, and the professor there is one of the leading professors in leadership. And I said to him, we want to test for resilience in people that we're bringing into our company. And I said, the way we do it with older people is you just ask them their story. If I interview somebody, I won't necessarily go through the CV. I just said, tell me your story, and then the person will say, oh, well, I was at university here. No, I don't want to know that story. I want to know the real story about you. And when you've got somebody who's sort of a bit older and they tell you the story and you really get into the nuts and bolts of the story, you'll find out quickly what they've overcome and how they went about dealing with the challenges. So I said to him, that's how we deal with all of it. What do you suggest we do for a school leaver coming out of school, or a young 21 or 22-year-old coming into the business? How do we test that resilience? That what's called impulse control. Impulse control is impulse control is that ability not to give up, especially in the face of adversity. It was best tested in the marshmallow test. They put these kids in a room. Remember, in the 1960s, been discredited in some respects. They put these kids in a room, and they had a whole lot of marshmallows in front of them, and they put a bell next to them, and they said to them, listen, if you want to have a marshmallow, now, you can take one. Well, sorry, what I want you to do is I want you to wait for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you can have all the marshmallows on the table. But if you feel you can't wait for 30 minutes, then what I want you to do is just take the bell, ring the bell, and you can eat one marshmallow. And what they found is that the kids that were able to delay the gratification had greater impulse control. They were more resilient. They were able to hold out for longer, and they actually proved better than IQ to be a success factor in life as a matter of interest. And so when you're talking, so I said the best thing you can ask those people, if you want to find out about resilience, is just ask them about their purpose. Because people with purpose are more resilient than people with no purpose. People, if you're doing something, you look at these fundamentalists who are fighting wars. They fight wars on purpose. You know, it's hard to get by them because they're so purposeful. Anyway, asked them their story, and he said, don't underestimate how many stories come out from people that are 18, 19, and 20. There's so many broken homes, so many challenges in the world that they all got that. So he said, ask them their story. So back to how was I going to share these values that we have in our company. I want to tell you a story. And thought the best way is to drop the guard and tell you not the story of all the great things that I'm sure Loki has told you about that he's done in his business and other parts of the business, but I'm going to tell you a story of where we actually failed and what we learned from that story. And I hope you'll indulge me just for a while because Cammy's put me on a timeline here. Hope I make it. She did take 10 or more minutes earlier. So I could tell you all of the theory about that, being resolute, trustworthy, and responsible. The story Martin was asking me earlier about impact polymers. In 2015, after a long, hard process of investigating and evaluating and doing all you can, traveling around the world looking at all sorts of plants, we decided that we'd build a recycled PET plant. And it was going to cost 350 million rand, and we checked all the risks associated with this type of project. And we eventually got the IDC on board, and we put in money, and they put in money. We were both shareholders. They put in quite a lot of debt. And at the end of 2015, this thing was going, actually. It was running quite well in the beginning. And it was constructed, and it was very impressive, actually. Looking at the faces here, some of you would have been at the launch in 2015. I'm not sure if you guys were there. And some of you would have been there. And actually, it was going swimmingly for a while. But when we started this project, incidentally, the price of recycled PET was around 17 Rand. By 2018, it went up to 21 Rand. And, you know, recycled material became dirtier. As you collect more, it gets dirtier, not cleaner. And you need more cleaning equipment anyway. Long story short, no excuses, it didn't work. By the end of 2018, we spent 600 million, and we still didn't, we weren't making a profit. By June 2019, we had sunk 650 million between ourselves and our partners into this project. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my 650 million. And the PET price went from 21 Rand to like 16 Rand, and it was going down. And our shareholders and the funders said, we have to make a call. What are we going to do? And we're at this crossroads. What do we do? You know, here's our values: resolute, trustworthy, responsible. Now it's a big test. Fortunately, we'd structured it in a way that it wouldn't sink the rest of our company. We project financed it, you know, we did it. We understood that it was risky. So we came to a point where we had to make a decision. And to tell the rest of the story, I'm going to divert a little. Imagine you're 50 years old or 40-something, You've been working 25 years, and in the 25 years you've obviously studied before you started working, so you've got a toolbox. And in your toolbox you've got all your tools, your education, you've got 25 years of work experience in your toolbox, you've got a lot of successes and some failures in your toolbox, you've got a lot of relationships in your toolbox, and you've got wisdom, knowledge and experience in your toolbox. And in my toolbox, I started off as an apprentice fitter and turner in my early days. I've even got real tools, or spanners and things in my toolbox. And at 50, you've got a great toolbox. 25 years plus all the education in your toolbox. So if you're 50, let's think now, retirement is a thing that's moved out. I mean, retirement's only determined by energy, not by age. So it's realistic that many of us sitting here will work until 75, 80, maybe longer. So if you're 50, you've got at least 25 years to go. So if you started at 25 with 10 units in your toolbox, by the time you're 50, say you've got 100 units in your toolbox of things, of experience, knowledge and wisdom. And you said to yourself, okay, for the next 25 years, I'm going to start here. What can I build for the next 25 years? By the way, what I'm sharing, I think applies to us personally as well as in our businesses. What could I build if I start today, and I'm going to build for 25 years now, and I'll start with 100 in my toolbox, not 10. What can I build from there? It's pretty obvious you're going to build something great, because you've got all of that stuff in your toolbox. But the peculiar thing is, it doesn't happen like that. And you have to ask yourself, why doesn't that happen? And the reason is, over the 25 years, you've got another box. And in that box is a whole lot of negative experiences, emotions, and things which make you cautious, and things which tell you, don't do this, don't do that, foot off, you know, all of those things, the emotions. So you've got the one toolbox with all that wisdom, knowledge, experience, and on the other side you've got all these emotions. And these things are actually on a scale. And in time, that box of emotions and things far outweighs, if you allow it, the box full of all the tools of knowledge, wisdom, and experience. And I'll bring this back to our polymers plant just now, because it's very relevant. So how do you detach yourself from all these emotions, all these experiences, all these things that weigh you down in your personal life and in your business life, and in our case, in this case of polymers? How do you actually detach yourself from it? Because you own the problem. You know, this project was a personal project for me. I mean, I must say, it was a passion project. It's one you put your heart, mind, and soul in. You've risked a lot of your company's reputation on it, doing this thing. And every time you think about what you know you should do, you think, oh, I can't do that, but I'm so invested. How am I going to deal with that? And if you think about your personal life, you think about your business life, there are many situations that you sit with like that. You look at fraud and corruption in most businesses, it's known. People know, good people in the company know it's happening, but they don't say anything because they invested in not saying anything before. So they become invested in the problem, even though they're completely innocent. They become invested in the problem because they don't speak out about the things that they know are not right, and they don't do the right things. So how do you detach yourself from all of this so you can actually benefit from all that wisdom, knowledge, and experience of 50 years or 25 years? You ask yourself one question. And I put it here as one line, but in my own life, this went through, and in this time in our business, this was a huge trauma cycle to get to this point. In the case of our polymers plant, where we had to say, what would I do if I was in this job for the first day and I didn't own any of the problems that exist today? And I had to just make a decision based on the facts today and where we're taking the company, not necessarily where we came from in the context of this particular issue. In effect, you have to fire yourself from your job one night, get through the trauma of being fired, and then arrive at the job the next day rehired and make the decision as the new guy, even though you're the old guy. That comes with huge personal risk because it's quite realistic that you could be fired. That's why you must go through the trauma the night before being fired, so when you go to work the next day, and if you are, at least you've been through the trauma. And the next morning you rehire yourself, say, what would I do in this situation if I'm first day in my job? And once you do that, and I can speak from personal experience, once we're able to do that, we're able to make rational decisions that relate directly back to the values that I showed you of being responsible, being rational, logical about things, but not necessarily abandoning the things, leaving everybody in the lurch, which unfortunately is part of that process. But at least you start looking at things differently, and you're able to build a future which is not necessarily burdened by the bad decisions of the past. Because everybody's sitting here, I'm sure all of you are fantastic, but there's nobody sitting here that doesn't have some of these things. There's not anybody, I'm sure, sitting here today that doesn't need to sort of say, what would I do if I was first day in my job? And make decisions that don't burden you with the history of the past, personally and in business. And I called some of my colleagues in, on the polymer side. I was actually in Botswana traveling when I was going through this trauma of what we need to do here. And it was apparent to me that the best option here was just to say it didn't work, and go with all the, disappointment, and you're proud, everybody's proud. And all that goes with that. But sometimes you just got to put that in your pocket. Because once you do, you unlock so much more in yourself and in your business. And I called some of my colleagues in unrelated businesses. I said, I think we need to do, and a number of my other colleagues who I was dealing with through this process, we sort of had worked out a couple of other things in our business that need to happen. I called in one of the MDs, for example, I say, and not in plastics, just to dissociate it from anything here. I said, I think we must do X, Y, Z in your business. What do you think? He says, he thinks it's a very bad idea. I said, why? He says, because we've just invested this, and we've done this, and we've done this. It didn't work, but we can't do it, because what are we going to tell people? I said, I just want to ask you one question. What would you say of your first day in your job? He said, I'll do exactly what you just told me. So I said, okay, that's what we're going to do, and you're not going to be fired. And all of a sudden, the decision-making improved, actually. Not only in this plant, because this plant we closed, went into business rescue, and it was a sad story. Today it's not running. And so that unfortunately didn't have happy ending in the context of RPET, but I'll talk just now about that. But once you do that, you open the door for your wisdom, knowledge, and experience, and that of your business to actually prosper and flourish and get forward. And we took that as a theme for the years that followed, from 2019, 2020, 2021, of day zero. What are we going to do in day zero? And I went around, spoke to all the colleagues, and some of my colleagues sitting here would have heard this. If you're sitting in a job, and we say, especially in finance functions, because finance people see fraud often, they see it early, or stock counts. I know it's not relevant here. Stock counts, they just roll it for a month. So just saying, I'm day zero. Next day I come to work, it didn't work. I'm just going to tell you it didn't work. Take the risk early, because when you don't, come to work every day as though it's day zero. Deal with every customer as though it's day zero with that customer, because you go with a certain energy that you wouldn't have if it's day 1,000. Day 1,000 at least brings the knowledge, wisdom, and experience and all of the good things. But day zero allows you to forget the bad ones and move forward. And with that thinking, we were disappointed and we let people down in polymers. But we were, I think at the end of the day, tested to the core of what we stand for. And you might say, okay, how resolute was that? We gave up, actually, on 650 million. And I thought, oh, you're okay. Well, if I'm fired, that's not the end of the world. I didn't do anything illegal. We tried our best. And I'm not sorry about trying. And I went to my shareholders, we made an announcement, and a number of the shareholders phoned and they said, sure, we're relieved you didn't put any more of our money into that project. They were actually happy. But it cost us 350 million cash, we lost. And many of my colleagues didn't get bonuses for 3 years because of that project that we put our hearts, minds, and souls into. And after day zero, went through a process, and earlier this year, we're busy sort of working out what's the next thing in this business. And so I still had this thing that I'd love this business, actually. But Loki decided he'd walk around there one day, and he did. He walked around the factory, and he said, actually, I think we should buy this thing. And we went and we bought the property that wasn't in business, and we bought the business out of business rescue, and we decided, okay, we're going to build a new factory there. And as we speak now, Ruben and Co are busy building a new plastics containers factory on the property that was previously Mpact Polymers. And so out of that will come something. We're spending 180 million rand on this project, but at the end it'll be, can I say, 500 million, over 4 or 5 years. We're going to spend a fair amount to invest there to deliver these world-class products in a world-class factory that will be automated in a way which is really state-of-the-art. And I'm sure if Loki hasn't shared already, he will. And we're putting our heart and mind and soul into the new thing. And we still recycle plastic, not rPET. But in our business, plastic containers, in this business, we've got a substantial recycling facility and we're expanding it. We've taken the equipment that was previously in our Prince factory. We're building and constructing a property over the road from that. And we're moving that equipment, all the recycling equipment, into one place to have a proper recycling facility so that we can offer our customers, many of you sitting here, the ability to take back your crates after their useful life, recycle them and give you new crates made from your old crates, and wheelie bins and all that goes with it. And even the wheels. Did you show them your wheels, Ruben? Even the wheels, which I love, my favorite product. And so out of those ashes came something. A sad story. But those things tested us at our core in terms of what the values really were. And today, I could come and tell you about all the great successes and the projects we're doing, which are many. We are investing in our business. South Africa's in a tough time, but we're very grateful. Loki says it well. You mustn't complain when you've got a loaf of white bread under your arm. And we've got a lot of things to be grateful for, which are allowing us to invest in times when everybody else is scrambling. Here's a project that we built in Pitu Kondo East Mpumalanga. It was commissioned in March this year in one of our paper mills. It makes sodium sulfate that's used in washing powder. Currently, most of the stuff's imported. And now, as a byproduct of our Pitu paper mill, we're going to make sodium sulfate. We are making already sodium sulfate that's being sold to the multinationals. A project that wouldn't have existed if we didn't go with our partners here. 2 former employees, 2 black guys, created a business. We're a minority shareholder. And they engineered something that wouldn't exist if you didn't engineer it. You didn't walk into a shop and say, I just want one of these plants. You actually got to go and engineer it. It took 3 or 4 years, and today it's going. Incidentally, these guys won President Ramaphosa's award for the best greenfields investment in South Africa in 2019, which we're very proud of. In terms of the BI scheme. It's a flagship BI program, and it works. So we don't only have failures, we have some successes, but we learn more from the failures than we do from the successes. And we are purposeful about driving this circular economy. This is just not about, a lot of people talk about the circular economy. We live the circular economy. My first recycling project I did in 1995, I had to go with Ronnie Recycler suit to a school on the East Rand, and I had to go and look like a Ronnie Recycler and encourage the teachers to take up recycling. Before anybody spoke about EPR or any of that, we were recycling. It's part of our life. And we're closing the loop. And we're learning, and we're failing. And we had a talk the other day, Loki was there, and Scott Brits, one of the participants in the Rugby World Cup, the most recent one, was there. Yaku was also there, many of the colleagues were there. And he said that one of the things that Rassi brought into the team, some of you may know better than I do, he says, they don't win and lose. We win and we learn. You don't lose, you learn. You win and you learn. And I feel that that is sort of our story as a company. But to learn, you've got to try things. And in closing, I'm reminded of...
Make. Dispose. That's how a linear economy works. It's not how we work. We believe that what we make should be collected, recycled, and made again. It's good business that's good for the environment, good for the economy, good for our communities, and good for the world, leading the way towards a circular economy. Impact.
In closing on this theme, I'm reminded of a part of a speech that was given by Theodore Roosevelt long ago, 1910. He'd just been hunting in Central Africa. He'd already been president. And he was speaking to a whole lot of investors in France. Many people were critical of his time as a president of the USA. And he said, It's not the critic who counts, the one who points out how the strong man stumbles, or the doer of deeds may have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and falls short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming, who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who in the end, at best, knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place will not be among those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.